Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us today about having a long and convoluted path to entrepreneurial success. Today, you'll be meeting Julie Gibbons, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who's gone back to her design roots and creates branding and web design for women in business. Welcome to the show, Julie. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thanks, Suzy. Thank you.
And you're in Australia. Oh, my God.
I am in Australia.
That's so fun to have you here. Now, I know we're going to have...
Here.
It's freezing?
Yes. It's really cold. We're in the middle of winter. Well, just at the beginning of winter. It's very cold. But
you did look a little bit wrapped up. I thought, oh.
Oh, good.
All right. So I know we're going to have a lot of fun today talking about your midlife entrepreneur story. We're going to be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting in your way a little bit here and there and might be challenging for you in your life as well as being a business owner. So I like to kick these off with this basic question. How old are you? How long you've been an entrepreneur? A little bit about your journey and, of course, what it is you do in the world. So take it away.
All right. So to start at the beginning, I'm 60, almost 61. I'll be 61 at the end of the year. How long have I been in business? That's kind of a bit of a convoluted question in itself because I've dipped into it and dipped out of it a few times over the last 20 years or so. So how did I get here? I grew up in a very conservative household and was told as I was growing up that art is not a career. That was pretty standard for when I grew up. So as much as I love drawing, as much as I love creating things, I had a Barbie collection that was, my mum was a dressmaker, so I had lots of scraps to play with all the time. So I was always dressing my dolls, and that was what it was about for me. But then, what are you going to do for a real job? So I ended up going and working, doing office work, bookkeeping, and I was good at it. So I did quite okay office management. That was fine. But then one day when in my late 20s, very good friend said, oh, you love drawing. You really get into detail. Why don't you go and do some jewelry? So I ended up I went into university and did a jewelry degree, did an honours year, came back and thought, I tried to sell a few things, had no business skills really. Even despite I worked as office management for so long, I still had no business skills really. And didn't do very well with that. So then I went back to office work and then I did that for a while. And then somebody suggested I do a PhD and I was going to get a scholarship. So I did that, did a fine art PhD. And again, I ended up not doing anything with it afterwards. It was fun at the time, but there were no jobs around for anything with a PhD. So I ended up going and doing a teaching degree. And then I ended with the teaching degree. I went and taught high school for a while, visual arts at high school. Again, I just, all the way along, as much as I was surrounded by people who are doing quite okay in the art field, I sort of kind of, after all that stuff from childhood, art's not a real thing and you don't feel like you can legitimately push yourself forward in that field. But I ended up on Etsy selling a few bits and pieces, cushion covers, and then I had kids and I just wanted to get involved with Etsy because there was other adults there and I was stuck at home. I'm on the farm. My partner's a farmer. So then I'm on the farm by myself with 3 little kids. By the way, I had a singleton and then twins 22 months later. So I had 302 by myself. He was always out either working. He was working full time at the university as well as the farm. And I'd had no family around. So it was pretty much me with the kids at home by myself. So I got onto Etsy, that went for a while and it's still not very good with the sales. But I kept on finding myself on the forums and helping other people make their shops look better and helping them with their marketing stuff. And I just kind of fell into to branding like that, because design's just something that seems to be like, it's just my core thing. Yeah, so I just want to make the world a more beautiful place. So that was kind of how I fell into it, really, more so than deliberately a decision. I'm going to go and build a business with branding and build websites. Yeah, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. But, there's a lot of stuff in there, the teaching and I've done so many other things. Yeah, high school teaching. I worked in, like, when I first left school, I went and did a college degree in computer studies. I think it was just called that, but it was a bit of coding and stuff. So I mean, I've been around the logic, the computer side of things for a while as well. So yes, and I think now I've got to this stage in my life where all of that stuff has coalesced into what I do now. So it's given me a whole bunch of skills, even though at the time people, especially my partner and my family saying, "Oh, why don't you stick to something? Why don't you just, have this one career path and do that?" But I see that having all those disparate experiences has really fed into where I am now, and it feels really good to be where I am right now.
Julie, that is such a great story. I mean, I was just cringing when you were sharing how you were discouraged from pursuing the arts as a child. As I'm a midlife coach, a midlife mindset coach. I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and I also work sometimes with women who aren't yet entrepreneurs, but they probably have it in their future. And so many of them who are art inspired were told the same thing. And it is such a hurdle to embrace something that's so natural and passion filled, right? It's just such a hurdle because of that narrative that you've been believing for decades about what's a worthy pursuit and also about your skill base, And so I love that your path was one step at a time and it all makes sense in hindsight. And that's typically what happens is, right? We don't know the path. None of us can have a crystal ball, but all we can do is make the next best decision, which you did, but it all makes sense. I mean, what you're doing now is a perfect blend of all of your experiences, really.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really crazy that I did actually have that story told to me as a kid, because my grandfather was a dress designer in New Zealand. My grandmother ran a clothing factory. My mother was a dressmaker. My father was really creative and a serial entrepreneur. Like, he had about 6 businesses while I was growing up. And so this story about, oh, you've got to pick one thing and stick with it, like, even my parents didn't do that. Like, why should I? But this is what I was told. That's pretty crazy, really. Like, it's quite hypocritical, isn't it? It's weird.
Well, yeah, like we can't, who knows why they felt so compelled to share that advice with you? Probably their own fears. Who knows, right? We'd have to ask them. But what you did with it, and the effect of that negative narrative on your life, and it's just sad. And you were so courageous to finally do it anyway. I mean, even you were kind of sneaky about going in the back way. Well, I'm going to get a PhD. That should be a good idea. But it's like, oh, I'm really going to become credentialed with a respectable level of degree and expertise by going this way, which isn't being an artist necessarily, being an academic in fine art. It was kind of like a backdoor way to still hold on to what you were truly passionate about.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I loved doing my PhD because I got a scholarship, so I got paid to have fun. It was excellent. I loved it.
Wow. Yeah. Very interesting story. And so here you are. And also, I love the way you naturally noticed how you were drawn to help people in Etsy. I mean, the fact that you noticed that, brilliant. And people, you were engaged. It was kind of like, one of the things, I coach a lot of women on finding their passion. And one of the things that, one question I ask is, what would you do no matter where you were? Like, if you were on a desert island, what conversations would you be having? How would you be trying to help? What would you be thinking about? And there you were on a desert island of Etsy. And what were you doing? You were called to help something based in visual arts that was related to marketing, really, right? And promotion. There you were.
Yeah. And I just because I see these women who, I mean, it's still the thing that drives me. I see these women who've got great things to share, and they want to help other people. And yet one of the things that really stops me in the first place, like your visuals, like if you don't get that right, if you're not making a visual connection, we are so distracted in this culture. We have got zillion things to distract us. If you can make a visual impact and you can catch someone's attention like that, and, they're the right person for me, then people will dig deeper. And that's why I see, I mean, quite apart from me wanting to make the world a more beautiful place, this is the big driver for me as well. I just want to make everything look pretty. But it's just to help those other women to actually connect with their audience. I mean, that's a really big, it's a beautiful kind of ricochet effect, like it's an on and goes domino effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Lifting other women up by helping them do what they do well.
Yeah.
Right. That's so good. So how do you typically find your clients?
A lot of word of mouth, actually. So that's really nice, and that's great, because obviously I'm doing a good job with the clients that I do have. So that's probably the biggest driver of new clients. So some people just still find me in Facebook groups. I'm in several Facebook groups, and I consistently post online on my own page as well. And yes, certainly I've got an email list, of course. Like that's definitely worth something as well. And the people that have been on my email list for a couple of years will get in contact with me, and they'll say, "Now is the time. I want to do this now with you." Like I've been on your list for 2-3 years, so that's really interesting too. How that email list is just it's a lot. It's a slow burner, and but it comes through. It really does. Yeah.
Yeah, you're developing trust. You're consistent.
Absolutely.
Right? You're
Absolutely.
top of
Yeah.
mind in their mind. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, now one of the things that comes up, of course, with women our age who are entrepreneurs is what I call classic midlife issues. So these are the kind of things that they just kind of bite us in the bum, It's like, so one of the things you talked about was perimenopause with three teenagers. And when you mentioned so casually that you had 3 kids under 2, my jaw hit the ground, but of course you can't see that on a podcast. So you did have 3 really close together. So tell me a little bit about perimenopause and what was going on for you in that phase with your kids and your business.
Okay, so that kind of started when mid-high school. So that was, they would have been about 14, 15, 16, kind of that age. Actually, probably a bit earlier than that. So yeah, just like when I remember my daughter when she just kind of first got her first period, and she's like the hormones are going crazy for her, and she's just all of a sudden switched from like she'd have a quite able to express herself and her opinions and stuff, and she became quite strong in how she wants to stand about something. But when she hit that stage of the hormones going crazy, and she had a disagreement with us one day, and it was like there was venom coming out of her mouth, and I was like, oh my God, what is that? And I'm already in perimenopause, and I just like no tolerance for anything. I'm going, what the hell is that? Like, and it was, I don't know. I have no words to express how I felt. I was just, I was flabbergasted, and it was just, and there's just so many instances where the things and they're going through all those rough stuff with the hormones, and they're getting argumentative, and they're, demanding, they'll sneak off and do their own thing without asking, and all of that stuff is just really pushing my buttons all the time, and I'm just no tolerance, and it was like a really, really uncomfortable time in my life. Things settled down now a bit. My daughter's moved to Sydney she's coming back home, but she's moved to Sydney for a while, so there's only been the 2 boys at home. But even with the boys at home, they're still at that stage where they can get really they can really demand their point of view, or they can get really argumentative about a particular thing. So that's still, for me, I am actually at menopause now. So like the hormones are kind of steady relatively, but by the same token, I think when you get to this stage of life, also you're not so accommodating. You're much more inclined to stand up for yourself and say, well, that's crap. I'm not putting up with that. Yeah. So yeah, there's still a few less than pleasant moments in the household when you're at this stage of the game as well. The thing that really is taking a lot of our time at the moment is still there's so much with the kids. Neither of the boys have their driver's license. So we, between me and my partner, are transporting them to and from work. They both have apprenticeships, which is fantastic. Love it. But it's just such a massive time demand. And so, yeah, just getting them around the place and getting them to and from where they are. One is in a town that's like 55 kilometres one way, and the other one's in a town that's like 20 kilometres the opposite direction. So there is a lot of driving going on.
Wow. And do you know why they don't have their licenses? Are they?
It's because they're not old enough. In Australia, you don't get your license until you're at least 17.
Okay.
So they've only just turned 17. So one had his L's driver's license, which means you have to have a supervised driver, like someone supervising them while they drive. And yes, they don't get their license. So we're really close to one of them getting his provisional license, so he can take himself, which is really fantastic. It'll be such a big relief. But yeah.
Well, with you being on a farm, yeah, it's not like you're in a town where there's a bus.
No, definitely not. No, it is. It's just us driving them. So yeah, it takes us like 3/4 of an hour to get one to work, and then 3/4 of an hour home as well.
Wow.
The other one's 20 minutes. So it's not, yeah.
Wow. No, the other thing that stood out on your form was the way that you are positioning this problem of time and space. And I really, really resonated with this. So time and space are constant challenges. You also noted that your partner is semi-retired. And when we're out of sync like that with somebody retired or semi-retired and the other one working, and as an entrepreneur, you're probably feeling all fired up. It can really be a problem.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, it's again, I've built this business up from nothing, just on the kitchen table, as so many women do, which is and built it up in between all the other demands. So it's been a real challenge to do that. And now my partner is semi-retired. He feels it's better, but it's still like, especially when he first retired, it was like he'll just walk in to whatever I'm doing and just say, Julie, I want you to come and help me with this. Or, like there's no barrier. There's no boundary. Like if I'm at home, I'm therefore available. That's his mindset. And so that's been a real challenge to get around and say, no, I'm working. No, I'm working. Yeah. So I'm sure that's a really common issue for women as well.
It is. And, to solve for it, it's a combination of boundary setting and dealing with your own people-pleasing tendency, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And increasing awareness and respect for what it means to work at home. And, since COVID, there are so many more people working at home, but to keep these walls or boundaries clear, it's definitely challenging. Plus, what we were just talking about, being an entrepreneur at this age is very different than somebody who's thinking about retirement. And I have watched several of my friends retire recently, mostly teachers, where they started early and they were able to retire already. And I'm not thinking about that at all. Like, I'm still very excited about my business and having new projects like a podcast and helping more women this way. It's very exciting. And so the entrepreneurs I've been talking to really don't think about retirement in the same way, because there's other ways to gear down without retiring in a classic way, But to have a friends or a partner or spouse who aren't where you are professionally in terms of career trajectory or retirement, it can be very challenging. So how do you do with that boundary setting?
It's an ongoing challenge, and so it is an ongoing challenge. I have told him it's a lot about mindset for me too. I find that a lot of it, as you said, is people pleasing, and as growing up in the 60s, as well as I do, there was a lot of gender roles that were assigned to us, and the girl's place was to be the server, the facilitator, and that's what we do. And so when he says, "Oh, come out with me and help me, fix this thing in the paddock," it's like, it's kind of like, how can I refuse that? You know, I feel obligated. I feel obligated to do that. And even if I'm working and he comes in the room to do something or other, I feel like I have to stop what I'm doing and pay attention to him, even though, you know, I shouldn't really have to do that. I'm working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
So,
it's to be, at least you're aware of it and you can start to work
yeah,
on it.
yeah. So a lot of mindset work. I mean, there's so much that I've unraveled, and yes, I've worked with EFT coaches and other mindset people to help me kind of pick apart what's in my head and why I do the things I do. So yes, it's been a long and ongoing journey, and yes, I'm getting better. You know, there was even as a kid growing up, my brother was a bit of a bully, so you know, dealing with that and why you know, it was never good enough, and then you know, the gender roles, as I said, like my mum and dad had a business when had several businesses, as I said, growing up. Mum was always the bookkeeper and office worker, and I remember dad used to give her, they were equal partners in the business, of course, but dad would give mum an allowance every week to go and do the shopping, that kind of thing. Like, you know, who controls the money here? Who controls the direction of, no, dad would say when we would buy a new car, dad would do, you know, dad would direct everything and mum would do everything else. Yeah. So that's kind of a lot of unraveling of that as well.
Yeah, it is. I had a thing yesterday where my husband is very helpful and he goes to Costco on the way home from work, but I wasn't finished my day yet. He finished early. And then the texting started about, you know, how to make decisions at Costco. So on the one hand, I'm very grateful that I don't have to go to Costco, but there's really no good awareness of what I'm doing and how disruptive that is. And also I'm so, you know, I have to really think carefully about how to communicate with something that
Mm.
I'm grateful for.
Yes, yes. That's exactly it as well. Like, you know,
Mm.
there's a lot of that. Diplomacy is a fantastic tool, I think.
Yeah. We started a conversation about it, but I was just thinking, wow, here it is. Here it is.
Mm.
So what do you think you would like next in your business going forward? How do you want to grow forward?
Well, in my business, I would like to grow up bigger. Eventually, I would like to, because I'm a natural teacher. So I would really like to grow it so I actually get to that leverage stage of business and have classes. I did doing that to start off with, but it had some success, but I couldn't actually kind of get any traction on it. So I went back to just doing the one-to-one. But now it's getting close to time to actually start doing some kind of course or something again. I've just hired a beautiful VA who happens to live 10 minutes down the road from me, and
No.
I am so we started co-working, which is just the most beautiful thing. And it's funny, isn't it? Like I've tried overseas VAs through Upwork, etc. But you know, and I found one that was great and worked with her for 6 months, and she was in America. But then she decided she was going to go because her husband started a business, so she went and worked for him instead of me. And I was really disappointed, but totally, of course, understand. But then I kind of could never find the right one. I kept on trying and trying. And then there's someone right in my backyard, and it was just so amazing, so beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations for that. Because that
Yes.
is, you know, getting more help is definitely a step in the right direction when you want to
Yeah.
grow. Yeah. And what about how transferable your skills are from working on a farm and everything you've done there to the work that you're doing now? Are you finding that even your lifestyle has helped you with some skills to grow a business like this?
Yes, I guess so. Like on the farm, I mean, there are things that I never thought that I would do, like learn to drive a tractor and, you know, get cars out of bogs and I don't know. There's all sorts of things like this because there's a million things to do on a farm. You know, there's never the same day. It's always different. And I guess there's lots of skills that I guess it's all about learning more resilience, independence, that kind of thing. Is really kind of hits home to you when you're on a farm. Yeah, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, because I would imagine, Julie, that you can figure just about anything out, which is what you have to do on a farm. You figure stuff out.
Yeah, yeah, yes,
And your
and like you
business.
know, That's right. And if you don't have if you don't have the tool, you kind of make do. You get quite inventive. You can be very, very, very inventive when you're on a farm as well. So that's
Definitely.
yeah.
What about being a woman over 50 and being an entrepreneur? What has surprised you about that experience?
I really feel like now I'm getting to who I'm meant to be. I really love that about, for all the convoluted path that got me here. I'm grateful for all of it because it's all kind of led to where I am now. And I think, just being able to finally pull it all together is a lovely thing. After all that, feeling like, that whole, it's not all those who wander are lost. I just feel
Yeah.
like that's been my life. I've just wandered around, and I mean, that's kind of my nature, and all the things that interest me. I'm never stuck for. I never feel bored. I'm never stuck for an idea. Constant inventiveness, constant thinking about things, and loving the visual information that comes in through my eyes. Just there's always something beautiful to see or something interesting to think about. So yeah, that's been my life, just wandering around and just noticing things, and now it's all coming together. And I feel like I've had this purpose all along, but now it's kind of gelled. So yeah,
Oh, you're exactly right. Like, I think changing your narrative would be the next thing that you could work on from a mindset perspective, that you weren't lost. Like, you were actually on the right path because you kept being drawn to your core passion, which is some kind of design, fine art, something. You were constantly drawn to that and just figuring out how to best apply it. So considering lost with that quote, I don't know. I don't know. Not all who wander are lost. You were definitely not lost.
no, and even though at times I've been told that I was lost, like, why don't you just pick something? Why don't you just run with, like you like this thing? You're good at bookkeeping. Just run with that. Be an office manager, make that into your career, or be a high school teacher. I mean, I actually really love the teaching, the great fun part, the things that suffer about high school teaching is teenagers, their attitude. I couldn't stick that out. I really couldn't stick that out. I was only doing that. I did that for 6 years. But yeah, I love how it's all coalesced for me.
Yeah, it really has. You created the exact perfect place for you to be right now. That's what it looks like. So how can people best get a hold of you?
Okay, so on my Facebook page, there is Brandywork by Julie. And on my website, just brandywork.com with an I, Brandywork with an I in the middle. That's really the best way to find me.
And I know you have something free. You want to share that?
Yes, it's actually one of my blog posts. So you can actually download it as well. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Branding Yourself Well. So yeah, just download that and you can go to the blog post. It's just a free blog post, so you can read through that. It's actually quite a long blog post. That's why I've made it into a downloadable as well. So yeah, you can work through that at your own pace. There's a lot of stuff. It is the ultimate guide.
Oh, that sounds like a juicy blog. So again, to find that, go to brandywork.com. That's BRANDIWORK. Brandywork.com. You can find everything on the website. Well, I loved hearing about your wild and meandering journey. I think it really, really does explain you just taking step by step, following your heart. You didn't know exactly where it was going to lead, but it led right back to design, which is where you were meant to serve. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, amazing, Julie. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share all of this. I really, really appreciate how you followed your heart, even though it wasn't the most obvious path.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great sharing this story with you. Thank you so much, Suzy.
All right. That is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur would like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with this show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.